Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to be discussing bioengineering, everything from cloud seeding to modular body parts, re-engineering the planet and human beings. We're going to go down the rabbit hole, conspiracy, crazy ideas for the future, and also cover some important things in terms of where we're at, climate change. Is it real? What's going on? What's our time frame look like? And is renewable energy going to be the solution? So we're going to get into a lot of different topics tonight. It's going to be a deep dive. We're going to have some fun. So thank you all for joining us again. It's a blast to see you here, and let's get the party started. Welcome back to Quantum Ladder Podcast. My name is Louis Borges. Joining me as always, my good friend and co-host, Marquise Williams.
What's up, everybody? This is going to be interesting. We have a lot planned for this one. I know it's probably not going to be one of the longer ones, but we're going to pack a lot into what we have here tonight because there's a lot to talk about. So I'm ready to get started, man. Let's get this party started.
Absolutely. And big thanks to everybody out there watching right now in the world of YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and the UNX Network. And today's episode is sponsored by our good friends at H2 Water Expert. They are exclusive distributors and importers of these high-end water machines like the one you see on your screen. That's the Vesta H2. And if you're interested in hydrogen therapy and the over 200 diseases it can help and benefit from, as well as prevention, check out h2waterexpert.com or click the link in the description. So today we're going to chat about bioengineering. That is a very diverse field. 1,000 things fit in the category bioengineering, but it's basically messing around with nature and science. Now that we have this technology, we can modify things. We can modify organisms, ourselves, the planet. We can do things to help, but it can also go horribly wrong, and we can do a lot of damage as well. We also want to get into some of the conspiracies that people talk about, like chemtrails in the sky. Is there such a thing? And are we actually doing that for real now from a climate aspect, as well as, if we're going to modify things, what does the next 1,000 or 10,000 years look like? What could our bodies potentially morph into, especially if we have the ability to make these changes ourselves? I mean, some people are dead set against this topic. They think, that's humans playing God. We shouldn't mess with that stuff. Other people say, hey, we have the technology. That's why we have it. Let's put it to its fullest potential. So it's an interesting thing. And the whole topic came to our minds basically from the idea of renewable energy. The last time we discussed synthetic biology, we did it in terms of synthetic biology and renewable energy, using things like genetically modified algae to produce biofuels and, resources that aren't so taxing on the planet. But essentially now, a lot of people are saying that renewables alone cannot save the planet. No matter how many electric cars we have, wind turbines, all the rest, solar panels, it's too far gone. And that's a scary thought if it's true. So human intervention is almost absolutely necessary to fix human-made problems. And I don't know about you, Marquise, but I found a lot of people on both sides of the coin, even with the whole topic of climate change. There's a lot of deniers that say this is a natural process. It's BS. There's nothing to this. Methane levels were higher before than they are now, things like that. But then the other side of that coin is saying, yeah, warming is a natural process. It's happening, but we're accelerating that rate at such a speed that, natural systems can't keep up. So is extinction a normal thing? Or are we just, are we getting a little oversensitive thinking it's us and everything else? Or are we actually doing the damage a lot of scientists say? And I guess the answer is based on whoever you ask, really. What did you find? about these topics?
Well, I will say that the overwhelming majority of scientists are pretty clear about the climate change data or global warming, whatever you want to call it. Um, Ultimately, we are. I don't want to say we're doomed, but we're not heading in a good direction, and apparently there's no way of turning back. We have we're beyond the precipice. We're beyond that peak, that point of no return, according to most climate scientists. I have a couple data points here that I could mention, but I don't want to call anybody out. I don't really want to do the whole criticizing scientists, the few that are, kind of pushing back against the idea of climate change. I will say at least that it's good that there are opposing thoughts on this from scientists and even from fringe people, which there are more fringe people talking about there being no climate change and that it is part of nature. As we know, they're volcanoes, for example, produce a lot of toxic chemicals into the ozone, and there's a lot of things that happen naturally. I mean, cow farts, right? Right. If you want to be funny about it, but there is a human made or human an increase because of human activity in climate change and global warming. And yeah, according to most scientists, we're pretty screwed. We're pretty screwed. The UN talks about it. The UN said the report states that there's essentially no way to ever change the direction of climate change, even if we did, for example, what you just said, which is turn all of our energy to renewable energy, which we won't do. All of our plans are like 10 to 20-year plans. Well, we need to make changes like 20 to 30 years ago and in a dramatic and like overarching way, or else we're screwed. And we're 20, 30 years past that, looking 10, 20 years into the future for any real change. Yeah, it's pretty sick where we're going.
Yeah, it's going to come down to whether we like it or not. It's going to take human intervention to fix human-made problems. I've got a clip here from somebody doing it looks like a TED talk on essentially what we're just discussing, that renewables alone cannot save the planet. And let's check it out.
Now that we know that renewables can't save the planet, are we going to keep letting them destroy it? I think it's natural that those of us that became very concerned about climate change, such a big environmental issue, would gravitate towards really romantic solutions like harmonizing human civilization with the natural world using renewable energies. But I think it's also understandable that as the facts have come in, that many of us have started to question our prior beliefs and change our minds. For me, the question now is, now that we know that renewables can't save the planet, are we going to keep letting them destroy it?
I do take issue, but I want to say because what frustrates me is that that's true, right? It's 100% true. I think the idea that we can't focus on renewable energies because they're also causing harm. I think the only way that applies is through like electric energy or any kind of energy that it requires lots of resource pillaging of all kinds of places all over the world. We got to be careful with that. But when it comes to using natural energy sources like geothermal, like wind, solar, tidal, you name it, we talked about alternative energies before. There are clear ways we can focus on renewable energy that are not harmful, that are the exact opposite of what we can't. I don't want to focus too much on the fact that there are harmful ones, because more harmful than those are what we're doing now, which
Yeah.
is fossil fuels. So that's the first thing. And the second thing I want to talk about is actually something that was posted by the Guardian. The Guardian on and this is an interesting factoid. So scientists have delivered a final warning on the climate crisis as rising greenhouse gas emissions push the world to the brink of irrevocable damage that only swift and drastic action can convert. This was last year, March 20th of 2023. Um, I think this is, again, we're past that. This is according to the IPCC, which is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. We're way past that. If you guys look at that up, the IPCC, Google that if you can. Look at the stats on that. Look at the data on that. We are not we're not going to be able to change it. We can at least slow it down though. You don't take the cart that's rolling down the hill, and then say, well, trying to stop it's going to make you tired anyway, so you might as well not try. You got to slow that thing down at the very least, because otherwise we're all going to crash at the very end of this fall, versus potentially being able to survive it.
Yeah.
Some of us anyway.
Yeah, and some of the major factors causing it are obviously we've heard of greenhouse gas emissions, fossil fuel combustion, hence the need to move to more greener renewable energies. But as we're hearing, that alone is not going to do anything because we're multiplying the effect. We're doing all of that as well as deforestation, using synthetic fertilizers, the industrial world we live in, the pollution it creates, waste management, CO2, that's a big one. We're going to go in a little deep as to why CO2 is the big bad monster, not some of the other ones that we might think. Yeah, and even the transportation of fossil fuels, there's evaporation, spills, oil spills, things like that. And as you mentioned, natural factors, volcanic eruption. Maybe there is a certain part of this that is a natural process. I mean, we're coming out of an ice age, so it's been warming up for the last however many tens of thousands of years since the start of this era. But I do believe we are making things go. Here's the data on what's actually driving climate change. So carbon dioxide is by far the greatest pollution or greenhouse gas we have to deal with, followed by methane, cow farts, as Marquis said. But not only cow farts, we're talking about decomposing matter in
Yeah.
areas that were once
Yeah.
permafrosted, like in Siberia, the Arctic. These were material that didn't fully decompose and go through that cycle. So now they have all this, gas basically built up, or they start the decomposition process as soon as they thaw. So now they release vast amounts of stored potential methane,
Yep.
and there's lakes that are bubbling up with methane, as they were once always frozen. Now the bottoms are thawing. As they thaw even faster. Ice covered lakes repel water. If there's no ice, it's now a dark lake. It absorbs more heat. It just accelerates that whole process. And then some things do actually do global cooling, like sulfur
Right.
dioxide or nitrogen, but they're very small. You look at how many increased temperature versus how many decreased temperature. It's pretty clear that we are, and this is all for the most part, man-made has made it worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are some things we can do. And to get to the bioengineering of it, it's like, okay, as humans with technology, how can we change this problem? What can we do? So we can do degraded landscape regreening. So like water, soil health, vegetation management, preventing erosion, things like that. Cloud seeding, with airplanes. So they would spray silver iodide or various salts. Charged water would be used to encourage formation of ice particles, therefore would make rain or snow depending on temperature. You could also do that with drones. And in Dubai, researchers are currently testing drones that are with highly concentrated lasers, and they shock the clouds and they encourage the water droplets to pool or sort of collect together and then fall as precipitation. Lightning mitigation, again, lightning causes a lot of natural wildfires. Wildfires cause not only pollution, but a huge amount of carbon is released every time a tree is burnt. You might have, hundreds, or even depending on the age of the tree, over 1,000 kilos of carbon just stored, waiting to go back in the environment. And then you also have VOCs as a result of putting out those fires, benzene. It just goes all bad. If you could reduce the lightning, you could save a lot of problems. And also hail mitigation as well. The same process for seeding clouds of rain can be used to keep hail from growing too large, especially inside supercells or things
Mm.
in tornadoes, stuff like that. And you mentioned solar power. We all think of solar panels, but really greenhouse gases are at that upper layer of our atmosphere, right on the border of kind of outer space. So this is actual solar intervention. I mean, some of these ideas are crazy. People talking about reflecting the sun or increasing the amount of aerosols in the upper atmosphere because that would cool the planet. But I mean, if that
Mm.
goes wrong, it's going to go all wrong. There's no way to fix that once you start messing with this stuff. And the scientists that are proponents of this are like, we don't have a choice. Yeah, it could go horribly wrong. It's going to go horribly wrong if we do nothing. It already is. So they make a
Yeah.
convincing argument that some
Yeah.
action is better than no action. We're decades behind where we need to be, and the targets we're setting are just not realistic based on the money we're spending and the amount of effort we're actually putting into fixing it. So, bouncing the sun, increasing aerosols, decreasing the amount of high altitude cirrus clouds. Those aren't clouds that turn into rain, but they're basically just high atmospheric clouds that, have an effect on sort of this whole exchange of pollution and gases and everything else. You could increase the reflectivity of marine clouds. I actually saw a video on that where they're spraying ocean water into the air because it makes clouds, but it makes them like brighter. And the salt component, it's not that they rain more, it just reflects more light. So they're kind of like friendly clouds.
Mm.
And
I yeah,
go ahead.
I wanted to qualify a couple because I jest with the whole cow farts, but there's some truth to that.
Yeah.
Give me a moment to just like pontificate a little bit about some of these facts because I do have some notes here for those, and I think it's important to kind of understand like what specifically we mean by this. So the first thing that is like, why would anybody believe that climate change is happening now because of human beings? So they do study these things. Obviously, climate scientists don't just make these numbers up. But there's a couple of facts that I think are important. The first thing is this. So, Earth's climate has been changing throughout history, which we all know that. So there's this warming that's at a rate that's never been seen, according to scientists, since the past 10,000 years. So over 10,000 years, we're seeing more now in a couple hundred years, or in this case, about 150 or so, than we have in over 10,000 years from natural causes like volcanoes, which again we'll talk about here because there are climate change factors that have increased volcanic activity, which then could accelerate the natural process of climate change as it is. And yes, that is also human involvement is responsible for. According to this, look at this up. So human activity has driven up CO2 concentration by 48% since 1850. So you know that like during the industrial revolution, we're talking about a massive amount of CO2 emissions that have caused a ridiculous amount of excess in these concentrations. July 2021 was the hottest month ever recorded. Now there's been more. There's been hotter areas in certain places of the world. I mean, Canada is experiencing the worst forest fires of all time, year over year. By the way, it's not just happening 1 year; it's happening year over year. I'm sure you know this already. And that's this is recorded. This is information that's been recorded over the last 142 years. This is increasing. It's increasing dramatically. And when it comes to volcanoes, they do emit naturally CO2, but there has been an increase in that because as they've been calculating it, because of human-made climate change, or I'm sorry, human-made factors that increase climate change. And so I wanted to just kind of add qualification to that statement and those things that we talked about. The cow farts are funny because cows, oh my gosh, there is
What is it,
if you
like 30% of the agricultural land in the planet is used to grow only 1% of the protein, and the amount of water that a cow has to, because I mean, they're constantly chewing and digesting for stomachs. They're producing a huge amount of methane, more
yeah
than, and we grow these things in massive quantities. They have extremely short lifespans because we slaughter them and eat them, and we're on to the next
yeah
generation. So there's
um,
been thousands more generations of cows because of us than there would have ever been in the natural world. And we it's not very efficient when you look at what goes into producing beef. To get a pound of beef, you have so much more waste and pollution. And I mean, I'm guilty. I eat beef, and a lot of people do, but if you really look at the numbers, it's a horrible thing. Like, it really is.
So there are two documentaries I want to refer to people to kind of sum up some of the concerns that we all should have: Food Inc. and Cowspiracy. There are obviously others, but those are the two that were impactful to me. They were like, they were kind of,
Holy
they are,
cow.
holy cow. They're disturbing. They're disturbing. And I mean, like if you have a sensitivity to cruelty to animals, I wouldn't watch it. If you want to see for yourself, check it out. Just be strong. Know that that the world isn't, that we can see things better. We can be optimistic still in the light of these things. Just be aware, so that your decision, your choices can at least change a little bit to impact the world just a little bit. Um, because every little bit counts, and we all know this. We all know this.
Yeah. So we're going to do an express episode today. We're not going to have our mid-show break. We're just going to run straight
Yep.
through because
Yep.
our info is like in a tree. So we kind of have
Yeah.
climate, and then, the conspiracy with cloud seeding and cool videos on that. And then talking about how bioengineering, if we could figure out a way to do this with the planet, well, then what would that mean we could do to ourselves? Could we
Yeah.
manipulate our bodies? What would the perfect human body look like in 10,000 years? We're going to go down that road as well. So
Yep.
this is it's a fun topic. But we were mentioning clouds and how they can do cloud seeding and things like that. And I got a quick graphic and then a video explaining it. So basically, silver iodide has been known for a long time that it can help form ice within a cloud. That makes it heavier and more willing to have precipitation. So in areas where there are drought, Dubai and other places around the world, this has been going on for many years. In fact, I have a Korean neighbor who's like 87 years old, and he told me like flat out, like during the Korean and Vietnam wars, the Americans made rain. And in some cases, they did it for strategic reasons because a lot of the enemy was hiding in bunkers underground. So they would literally make it rain to flood people out so that the enemy had nowhere to hide. And he just told me this plain as day, like American government knows how to make it rain. I saw it with my own eyes. That's kind of cool
Yep.
firsthand for a guy who was around for that amount of time. But yeah, so this is the one most people, talk about, and we see these in the sky and we're like, oh my God, chemtrails. Well, there's a difference between contrails, which are condensation trails, and purported chemtrails that look like this. But we'll get into that in a minute or two here. But let's just take a look at manipulating clouds, what the science behind that looks like, and then where it could be applicable.
Manipulating clouds to enhance rain or snowfall. That's called cloud seeding. And it's what India's capital, New Delhi, is currently planning on doing to wash away the deadly air pollution that has shrouded the city for weeks. Let me explain. Clouds are made up of tiny water droplets or ice crystals formed when water vapor in the atmosphere cools and condenses around dust or salt particles. These particles are known as condensation or ice nuclei. Without them, raindrops or snowflakes couldn't form and precipitation wouldn't happen. Cloud seeding is a weather modification technique that helps enhance precipitation. There are two ways to do this. The first is to introduce tiny ice nuclei into certain types of sub-freezing clouds. This provides a base for snowflakes to form and fall from the clouds. The second involves flying an aircraft to spray clouds with ice nuclei, like silver iodide particles or dry ice, to trigger precipitation. Cloud seeding can help boost winter snowfall and increase snow on mountains. But will cloud seeding really wash away air pollution, like India wants to do? Yes, but only temporarily. That's because in New Delhi, the point of cloud seeding is to manufacture enough rainfall to capture pollutants in the air and wash them to the ground. This will help substantially reduce the concentration of pollutants in the air for a while. But the root cause of air pollution cannot be washed away with extra rain, meaning this method is only a temporary fix.
So check this out, okay? You ever hear this is crazy. You ever hear of Project Cirrus?
I
You
think
talked
so.
about so there was an experiment that was done in 1947 under this name Project Cirrus. It was US Army and Naval Research and General Electric, which we can't get into that right now, okay? We'll save that
Isn't
conspiracy
that Thomas
theory.
Edison's company?
The General Electric?
I believe so.
GE, GE, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Which again, you keep. This is the problem with people like us. When we have we mention one thing, there are 14 other things we could branch off into. But let me focus.
Yeah,
Before
I have
get
it right
to
here. GE was born out of a merger between Thomas Edison's Edison Electric Company and the Thomas
Yeah.
Houston Electric Company in 1892.
Yeah, so which there's a lot involved in that because we want to talk about Tesla one of these days. We can talk about how there's a lot there. That's a lot of information that I didn't even prepare for that one. But I wanted to say that the GE, in collaboration with the U.S. Army and the Naval Research Institute, or the Naval Research, they attempted to essentially, create these ice crystals and create or dry ice that they created into a cyclone. And so they made a storm change directions, allegedly.
Wow.
There's another one called there's another one. Well, there's a couple of them actually, and I can't remember the name of this one, but there was this rare article, and I'm just thinking about this now as we're talking about about this topic. There was a rare article that I had to dig for this is many years ago, where allegedly they created a storm in, was it China? I think it was. They created a storm that flooded an entire area. And the government covered it up and claimed that it never happened and it wasn't them, it was an accident. But there was a lot of information where there was a conspiracy that sprouted from it. Chat, help me out. I know you guys know this. I know you do, because all of you are, listen, you're just like us. We're just like you. You know, I don't know everything. I don't remember everything. But right now, I know the chat can help me out. Think of it. Maybe I'm wrong about the area, but allegedly the U.S. government was involved in flooding an entire village, localized flooding, an entire village using this weather changing technology. Hit us up, chat, please.
Yeah, here's an article from USA Today. Again, too, if you are conspiracy minded, you're not going to believe anything the media has to say anyway. But according to media, scientists have disproven this chemtrail theory. So, a lot of people, they see contrails, these things, and they're like, oh my God, they're spraying. Not always. That is condensation or jet exhaust or a combination of both. But basically, some people call them chemtrails because there have been videos. And again, there's patents on this technology and rumors for 80 years or whatever that this has been going on, right? So although they're called chemtrails by most people, the white streaks in the sky are actually condensation, heated by a plane's engine and then frozen by those cold temperatures. Some chemtrail conspiracy theorists believe the white trails are a cocktail of dangerous chemicals sprayed from planes in a plot to control the population and food supply. So a group of researchers surveyed 77 atmospheric chemists and geochemists to determine whether any evidence of chemical spraying from planes has ever existed. And the survey results, which were published in environmental research letters, found that 76 of 77 scientists surveyed said that there is no evidence of chemtrails. But of course, if they were doing it, they're not going to admit it. So that's only as good as the people that wrote it, right? But I think because of, articles or eras and projects, like you said, Project Cirrus, people know that there have been weather modification attempts and some people say successes over the years, right? So why wouldn't you think that they're still doing that in some capacity? Now, from a global warming or just climate change point of view, I saw a model that said this isn't to be used for like war or nefarious things, but if you did want to use it to help in some drought-stricken areas, the main areas right now are west of Africa, because then you get that extreme dry with the jet stream and things like that, west of the Amazon, and I think west of, forget where the third was, but basically let's just take west coast of Africa, west coast of Amazon. They would cloud seed in those areas using ships that are literally shooting salt water in the air, or automated drone ships that could just do this where and when and as needed. And they can reduce some of that heat, and they can also bring rain to areas that, normally would get more, but are just getting not so much now, where it's causing species loss, the loss of plants and animals, people, failed crops, all the devastating part, because our planet is such a fine-tuned machine. Even if we think, well, how could we ever affect a planet that's this massive? We can. And even small changes have that ripple effect. So this could be something that you could use. It's not permanent. You could adjust the duration, the intensity. It wouldn't go wrong as much as something like, let's block the sun and spray a bunch of aerosols in our upper atmosphere. Like, we're talking 16 kilometers above the earth. Let's spray some shit up there and then planet. And we think it might work, or maybe the entire planet's crop system fails. All the vegetation dies, including us, extreme cold, and we trigger another era, another ice age in theory, if it were to go wrong, right?
Yeah, and this is the thing about this. This is probably one of the most, at least for me, frustrating topics, because when you get into chemtrails, you're getting into like Project the HARP, which is, it's a real thing. However, I'm not sure some of the conspiracy theories behind that aren't as well founded in terms of detail. A lot of it's a lot of the information that's out there about what HARP really is, what chemtrails really are by very fringe people that have written books about them, and I haven't read all that material. So it's unfortunate that it's a topic that doesn't have mainstream at all. And like literally at all. There's no mainstream data on this topic. And when it comes to what we do here, we really do focus on data. It is interesting to explore these ideas. So if you're in the chat, help enrich this conversation by providing some information that you might know in details and facts, because honestly, a lot of our chat is like, you guys have come from the conspiracy world, and deep in it. Like, I've been taught by some of the audience about these topics. I remember a year ago when somebody pretty much in the audience educated me on HARP. and some of the conspiracy theories behind that. With, by the way, also recognizing that it is conspiracy theory. They talked about MK Ultra and mind control techniques that have been used, why people believe that that chemtrails can affect the mood and essentially the mental state of mind of the population, and that the government is using these chemtrails in order to control us, to manipulate our chemistry, hence bioengineering us to be more docile or to be more chaotic. One or the other. It depends on who you're what conspiracy theory you listen to. They are polar opposites. Obviously, you can't be. It's an oxymoron to be docilely, to be calmly chaotic. You can't do that. But there are two different opposing ideas with that, in terms of how the chemtrails affect people in the human body. I don't know. There's 5G. I mean, talk about 5G altering the brain, and one day, I don't know. There's not enough data. Data is what drives any kind of real, observation of these things. We need data for that. And unfortunately, there is not a lot of good high quality data on this. So again, I'm going to call the chat to give us some info in the chat now. Hit us up there with those details, because I know you have them.
Yeah, it's hard to find, like you said, corroborating evidence that isn't just more conspiracy. So I kind of went with it. I'm like, okay, what's the craziest cloud conspiracy video I can find? So have you ever seen clouds falling out of the sky?
No.
Like lying in your backyard, like a big ball of foam. Again,
I've heard
can't
of it.
corroborate this, but it is a video, and it's not the only video that's showing this. So apparently clouds are falling out of the sky, folks. The sky is falling.
You wouldn't believe me if I told you, so I'm going to have to show you. Clouds are falling out of the sky again. This is somewhere in Nigeria. Do y'all remember a few weeks ago where I showed you the clouds falling out of China? And then there was somewhere in America as well? Guys, what does this mean? Does this mean the simulation is falling? Oh my God. Like, share, and follow for more for videos like this. And also keep up with me on my other platform. Let's get.
Oh my gosh, the simulation theory is a great theory, by the way, but not in the way that people are thinking. This is what frustrates me about conspiracy. Okay, I can't think of what it's called in the moment, but there's this idea that people who believe in conspiracies, and I'm one of them, by the way, but not these ones, who believe in like really far out there conspiracies, like, hey, we're living in what is a movie with Jim Carrey? I think it's Jim Carrey, where like he's in a simulation. Chat, come on, again, help me out. He's in a simulation.
Is it Cable Guy?
Is it Cable Guy? Hold on, let me Google this. Cable Guy. Larry the Cable Guy. No. That's not it. That's not it.
No, Jim Carrey plays a cable guy in some movie, but it's like, isn't it like
it's called
Groundhog Day
Truman Show? The Truman Show. Okay. The Truman Show, and I watched it because I wanted to. Everyone said it's a great movie. It was okay. It was good, but that's what people will believe. Well, it was okay. it was great in terms of the idea. It was okay because Jim Carrey is the GOAT. He did a great job with his performance, but the idea frustrated me because people will believe in that. Like the idea that he has essentially been the center of his own TV show, The Truman Show, and his whole life is a facade. It's all fake, and he slowly discovers through the waking up process that people would say today that it's all a facade. His wife, his house, the world itself, everything is a movie set. And the directors are trying to convince him. They've essentially concocted this entire set that is citywide to keep him inside of there since he was a little kid up to his adulthood, so he could live this show that they were broadcasting to the real world. It's really messed up. But it's an interesting theory because people realize something is wrong. They realize something isn't right. And so they're attaching these complex, unfounded theories that they are, and this is the thing, people who have conspiracy minds, they tend to be really smart people. They're pulling together facts that may not be there, but they have to find connections and build upon those connections to create an elaborate potential, essentially. I don't agree with it. I don't think we're all in a simulation where it's like there's somebody watching us through a video camera, or aliens are like watching us and manipulating us through some kind of string, like puppets. That's not what I think is happening at all. Although I do think it's far more complex than that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the reason why conspiracy exists is because a lot of stuff has legs, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's not a far stretch to think that, well, if the government's willing to do this, this, and this, why wouldn't they do that? Sure, that's way less nefarious than this. And we have proof they're doing this. So it's easy to it's easy to want to believe, and it's easy to take scraps that seem to be dots that connect. Even if they do connect, you'll never really know if they connect. So it's like
Yeah.
it's like a game that never ends. So there's no right or wrong answer. It's just your crazy idea is no better or worse than my crazy
That's
idea. So it's
which I
good to
hate, by the way.
discuss. I mean, we make a show out of that
Yeah,
sometimes, but
well,
it's got to be in
sometimes,
a
yeah.
healthy way. You still
That's
have to have the ultimate answer at the end be, I don't know. What maybe it's this. I don't know. Like as long as you're
maybe.
prefacing it and ending your sentence with I don't know, it's you're doing it okay. You know, it's not like, no, I know everything and nobody else knows, and I'm the only one on Facebook that knows that aliens are real and blah blah. Like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah, I
We've
talked to
blocked
them. They
people
were in
like
my
you
backyard
because you're
yesterday.
crazy. They're not
Yeah.
all crazy, but you know, you have to have a healthy understanding. Otherwise, you can literally drive yourself nuts. And there are people in the paranormal world literally going nuts. We're witnessing this.
Mhm.
It's happening on camera. It's happening on social media outbursts. It's just people are literally. I don't know if it's the phenomenon making people crazy or they
I don't
just
know.
drove themselves crazy thinking about nothing but the phenomenon. But it can become dark. You can start to go down rabbit holes and be like, I don't think the way I used to think. And
Yeah.
all I'm focusing on is this. I know you're going to say the frogs are gay, but yeah, that's basically what we're talking about, all right?
I love this guy. I love
Frogs
this
are
guy.
turning gay.
They're making the freaking frogs get. I love this guy. So
And whatever,
you
you
know
know
what
what?
gets
If the
me?
frogs are happy, I don't judge anybody. So
I don't care. Yeah,
good
as long
on
as they're happy.
as
You know
long
what
as they're
gets
happy.
me? What gets me is this here, okay? There is a lot of information, complex, rich detail about real, like, cons- the space program, right? There's a secret space program. Well, the question is, what is that? There is a lot of information and detail about what that could be, but it's convoluted enough that you can never fully put your finger on that thing. UFOs. We know there's entire government studies that were devoted to that. There's lots of data on that. It's undeniably true, but it's just elusive enough for us not to know exactly what it is. We can say it's the government, we can say it's aliens, demons, angels, freaking fairies. No, who knows? Who really knows what it actually is at any given point because it's not enough to give us a definitive answer for what it is, right? But we know there's something. And what happens is people do this thing where they instead of taking the data and letting the data paint a picture for them, they take the idea and then they pull data to fit their idea that they have
Yes.
in their own mind about something. And that's the danger of conspiracy theory in my mind. It's not when you take the data and you say, wait a minute, there's something here. It's when you say, listen, I think there's something here, and I'm going to ignore all this data because these couple of pieces are what fit my belief in this idea. That's dangerous because now nobody can convince you of anything, even if they present the facts of a case, because you're denying the facts and the data because of your own bias about a thing.
Yeah.
And people have a hard time determining the difference. Again, there's cognitive dissonance, so much so that people can't make sense of reality itself, let alone a conspiracy that might actually be there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about this before, like I mentioned earlier, a little bit about synthetic biology and what that would mean with renewable energy. But let's expand this out. Let's say we have all this ability to manipulate anything, anything biological. What could we engineer? What could we do differently? What could we change? So I've got some clips here, and so let's start with synthetic biology. So as we covered before, everything from the world of AI to robots, nanotech, quantum computing, virtual reality, digital tech, all of that is impacted by synthetic biology. But now we want to go a little deeper and talk about bioengineering, which is the overarching category. So, I mean, we're talking about global health, biomaterials, microfluidics,
Mm.
tissue engineering, medical imaging, molecular biomechanics, computational analysis. So, look at all these areas: physics, math, chemistry, biology, material science, chemical engineering, computer science, and then all the subcategories within them, right? So, this is a massive topic. We could do a whole podcast just on bioengineering. Here are some of the applications that we don't have solutions for yet, but we will need in the future. So, smarter therapies for cancer, biocompatible implants, so they would resist infection as well as rejection, nanoparticle contrast agents, so that's good for MRIs and imaging, paper based diagnostics, so home health care and global care, adaptable prosthetics. So prosthetics that actually learn from, you might only have this, but your nerves are going to be different in your stump than somebody else's. So they're showing people AI images of like, you have a prosthetic arm and like clinch a fist. And they have to kind of make that on the computer screen clinch. Well, what it's doing is it's programming the actual prosthetic that's what your body does when you want to clinch, which will be different from the next person wearing that prosthetic. There'll be different nerves firing, but it'll still learn that this means clinch, this means turn my hand. So having adaptable prosthetics that would literally make people that much more ambidextrous, even though they're missing a limb. I mean, it's amazing stuff, right? Engineering heart cells, so better cardiac function, better recovery after heart attacks. Biomimetic materials, basically to prevent gut infections. Miniature cell cultures, so tools that would be used to further the study of neurobiology, synthetic organisms. It goes on and on and on, right? And even in computational methods for assessing brain growth, childhood development, DNA, protein, and glycan microarrays, so drug development, things like that. And here's one I found unreal: is the test they're doing on yeast. So they're trying to bioengineer yeast that would actually be beneficial for space travel. So it could survive the harsh, what it would look like to go through space, long durations, maybe anaerobic conditions, lacking oxygen, basically to make food for traveling. I mean, we could bake bread on our way to Mars to simplify the hell out of it. That's the idea, moving the study of food science further using these bioengineering. And it's not always nefarious GMO trying to like screw up our food, brain control. A lot of this is just like, no, how can we use nature to help us? And specifically, how can we use it to help us fix some of the stuff that we've caused, right? Now, here are some of the things that are, I would say, beware, because with all this good stuff also comes these potentials. So you build a global bionet that could then be secured and democratized. Again, we live in a democracy right now, and a lot of stuff is downhill. So, I mean, it is novel, but in theory, it could go wrong if it's controlled by the wrong people. If you let people patent this stuff, it no longer becomes open source. So it's what they refer to as a top-down approach. And then things like mastering cell synthesis, chemical building blocks, synthetic design, acknowledging and discussing global concerns regarding synthetic cells. There's got to be some ethics and stuff that go along with that as well. But let's get into some of these more crazy things here. Let's talk about organoids. So in our last episode, we talked about modular body parts. I'll play that first because that'll kind of preface what we're talking about. We're literally talking about flesh and blood organs that will run by themselves with like little computer batteries or some type of a charge, but it's borderline sentient. We are growing hearts and lungs and brains and turning them into implantable devices or standalone devices. I have a clip coming up about organoids, which are literally mini brains that they could potentially be using to help with AI. Again, could be amazing, could be terrifying. Only time will tell. But let's take a look at what the modular body parts are first for anybody who missed last week's episode.
We're looking at Oscar, the first human modular prototype that is able to live in various setups. What's going to happen is that I'm going to connect the brain to the heart module to activate the blood circulation. Now, the lung is going to start breathing. You can see both organs are now collaborating. I can add a kidney module. And if I add a limb module, it starts actuating the organism to move. Now it's looking for the optimal temperature, which is 37 degrees. If I add another limb, Oscar will recognize it and beneficiate from new possibilities.
Okay, kill that thing with a hammer first.
I'm still mad he did that. I'm still mad he did. Why would you do that, doctor? Please stop. Please stop
The
this
idea is
nonsense.
that you don't need to rebuild a human or clone people or do any of that. You can literally
Right.
re-engineer just parts, spare parts for the broken car. And that's what organs would look like. Companies are actually working on this stuff. They have, very controlled environments. This isn't like a rogue thing. It's highly,
Mm,
supervised. So we
yeah.
think, again, only as supervised as you can with that kind of stuff. And when you let the genie out of the bottle, even if you're supervising it, the genie's still out of the bottle. Other countries can now do it without your supervision and say, no, we'll take it from here. It could go horribly wrong. So organoids, particularly dealing with the brain, is specifically a brain version of that, what we just saw. Rather than making, an entire brain, can you make pieces of a brain? Can you make mini brains? Are these things sentient? Are they considered life? I mean, there are ethics involved with bioengineering. You're changing nature. You're making stuff that we'd never had a chance to make before. Is this ethical? Should we do it? You tell us, leave us your comment in the chat room, but check out organoids.
Used on the human brain organoids. The organoids. Those little human brains that we grew in jars that grow eyes capable of seeing and processing light. The ones that scientists made play Pong and did better than AI and is currently being used to develop biocomputers. Well, the issue of vascularization may be pretty close to being solved. When they grow for too long because they aren't attached to a functional heart, they end up becoming hypoxic. Some scientists try to solve that by placing it inside a mouse brain, and it actually made connections and worked. Well, considering they're able to grow it next to a decapitated mouse and it took over the muscles, scientists figure it could probably work together. So we can actually make larger, more complex brain structures by growing the different structures of the brain separately and then fusing them together. With this, we're able to make more complex brains, and now we're making them mentally ill. With fusion, they're actually able to grow structures that they weren't able to grow initially with the brain organoids, and that includes microglial cells. From here, we may be able to understand different mental illnesses, as well as things like Alzheimer's and plaque disorders. The idea of having a brain organoid that's mentally ill is a little bit concerning when we're talking about biocomputers. I imagine they would always become mentally ill. Although what I'm more excited about is being able to grow different brain structures and fusing it into live brains that have become damaged by TBIs or strokes. Although the ability for them to be sentient is a little bit concerning when we're talking about implanting them into other people's brains, because how much of that intelligence is being transferred, and will that just incorporate itself into the brain structure?
So the crazy part is that they can. There was another video that I meant to upload, and I guess I must have missed it, but they were basically elaborating on that, saying not only can they build little parts of the brain, each region, they can, rather than grow it all as one, which would be very complex, they can literally grow the different lobes and prefrontal cortex and the putamen and all this stuff, putamen, I think it's called, and they could assemble a brain. If you had, brain damage, if you had, memory loss, things like that, they could give you the part that's failing, synthetically grown with your own stem cells, no rejection, because it's your flesh, it's your DNA, literally custom grow the part of your brain that's not working, or any other organ for that matter as well. I don't know. What do you think? Is this a good idea, or should we run for the hills?
So we live, we die. I mean, I'm more interested in how we can improve the quality of life that we have, the biology that we have today, versus modifying it for the per se. I personally don't believe that for myself, that modifying our biology, a healthy individual, is a good idea. Now, for somebody who has disabilities, if you were to modify their biology to just make them, have a better quality of life, no problem at all. I see why not. I mean, if you're giving somebody a quality of life they wouldn't have otherwise, yes. But I think that for the general population, heck no. Now, I do want to say something that I thought was really interesting. I've been holding this in for I don't know how, I think 5 minutes now. The idea that they're taking smaller and smaller parts and creating more complex parts or more complex processes, that is interesting to me. I've been looking into a lot of this new idea about AI agents, right? Guys, bear with me. I'm not going to talk about AI too much. I just want to relate this to this here. The idea that there's not going to be one centralized computer that's going to make all our decisions for us, but that there will be thousands of little agents that specialize in different fields and hyper specialize in like very small little like subfields, which would then eventually be able to communicate between themselves, and then be way more efficient than having one singular artificially intelligent machine or intelligence. That reminds me of that, and I think that is very effective. I think that's going to be the way forward, at least in this field in bioengineering, is going to be that of these subsets of different parts that we optimize and then use to integrate amongst themselves to create more complex and interconnected parts. That's a good idea. That's a great idea, I think.
Well, you talk about optimizing. So here's a video. It's an imagination gone wild video on if we were to optimize the human body and fix all the flaws that have either occurred through evolution or just because our environment's changed or just because you can always build a better machine. Let's see what that would look like in, let's say, 1,000 or 10,000 years. If we had to decide what is the best vessel we can live in, what would that look like from an anatomy point of view? This is what somebody's imagination went wild. And this is the correcting the human's body flaws. Let's check this out.
This is what science calls the perfect human body. Equipped with cat ears, frog skin, and a kangaroo pouch, scientists think these features would make humans our best selves. But why is this necessary? Well, our bodies aren't that great compared to the rest of the animal kingdom. Our backs and legs are easily injured. Our breathing is inefficient, and our method of reproduction can be incredibly risky. So, let's take all the best parts from other animals and put them onto our bodies. This is where Perfect Alice comes in. Developed by Professor Alice Roberts, Perfect Alice is a body that is tailor-made for the modern world. Let's take a look. But first, let's address the elephant in the room, or should I say the kangaroo. As you can see in the perfect human body, Alice has a baby sticking out of her stomach. This is a marsupial-like pouch that scientists have given her. Childbirth comes with considerable risks for the mother and the child, so the idea for this kangaroo pouch is to make bringing life into the world far less risky. It's larger, cozier, and ultimately safer than your human stomach when it comes to giving birth. And not only that, but the pouch has mammary glands, eliminating the need for human breasts. Instead, you can have your baby breastfeed inside of your pouch. Well, that's convenient. As we age, our ability to hear high-frequency sounds gradually diminishes. So Perfect Alice has feline ears with precise hearing abilities. They're equipped with over 30 muscles, compared to your measly 6 ear muscles. This allows your ears to capture more sound, enhancing your perception. Did you know that your eyes have an odd design flaw? Yeah, your retina is backward, meaning your light receptors are at the back of your eye, while your nerve fibers are at the front. This leaves you with a blind spot, one that our brains luckily fill in, but what if we could get rid of that blind spot altogether? Well, let's take eyes from an octopus and give them to Perfect Alice. These eyes don't have any blind spots, allowing you to have clearer and wider vision. Okay, next let's move to the spine. A regular human spine is prone to back pain and herniated discs as we age. So let's fix this by swapping it out for a chimpanzee spine. That reduces the number of lumbar vertebrae from 5 to 4, giving you a much sturdier back. This means you'll be more resilient to stress and strain. Imagine never having to suffer through a sunburn ever again. Well, for the perfect human body, that's a reality. Your current skin is constantly damaged by harmful UV rays. It tries its best to protect you by producing melanin, which is our natural sunscreen. The only problem is that it's often too slow, resulting in sunburned skin. Perfect Alice is changing that by having amphibian-like skin. It quickly produces melanin when faced with heavy UV rays. And not only that, but it can also lighten up, which means you can efficiently take in vitamin D. Okay, now let's move on to the legs. Perfect Alice has these bird-like legs that are built more like sturdy, efficient hinges. This allows her to put less pressure on her lower leg joints. These new legs feature less twisting and slower wear and tear. But that's not all the perfect human body is taking from birds. Bird respiratory systems inspired Alice's lungs. Your lungs are inefficient. They have to pull double duty by exchanging gases and pumping air in and out, making it harder to breathe. Alice has 2 separate air sacs that are solely responsible for moving air, while the lungs are focused on gas exchange. This sets up a one-way airflow through the lungs, making breathing more efficient. If you had this system, it would improve your endurance, heart rate, and make you incredibly athletic. These adjustments make the human body more athletic, safer, and could help you live longer, but there's one significant thing that scientists agree shouldn't be changed, and that's your brain. Evolution hasn't always made us the strongest or the fastest in the animal kingdom, but it has made us the smartest. And this has allowed us to live and thrive as a society, and dream up cool concepts like this. But what if we could change our brains by making them twice as big? Well, that sounds like a story for another What If.
So the movie The Arrival, I was thinking, like, what is the movie? There is an alien race in that has very similar features. I don't think they have the pouch, but the kangaroo pouch, but they do have very similar physical features to that woman there. And it's an alien race that's trying to essentially terraform. I don't want to give away the movie. You'll have to watch it yourself. But that's what they look like. They kind of look like that, kind of.
So we're going to have flamingo bird legs. We're going to have a pouch, feline ears. Looked like she had cameras in her ears. I mean, you might as well put a camera if you're going to go that far anyway.
I mean, why not?
And
I don't
when
think
you're
that would
born,
be...
the batteries are fully charged, not like the crap you buy on Amazon that's you got to charge it up for 3 hours before you use it. No, you're born, you're good. I don't know.
See, with those features, I feel like we'd be limited. Like our engineering capabilities would be limited. Our ability to work with tools, our ability to innovate.
Well, the hands would be the same. We'd have better skin, more vitamin D. We'd be happier. Brain would be the same or improved using organoids. Probably run like hell with those bird feet. Yeah. You see those things?
Yeah,
man, they're like backwards elbows. We would definitely run faster.
I wonder what like laying in bed with your partner would look like with those weird looking legs. I mean, kind of weird.
We'd have them too. It'd be all right.
Increase the bed size, I guess. I don't know. I mean,
maybe you could radiate heat better and you wouldn't get so damn hot under the covers.
Maybe, yeah. Feet wouldn't be too cold because they're so tiny. They're not gonna,
Yeah, we could finally agree on a sleeping temp. That would solve a lot of arguments globally. Oh, man. That alone is worth the Nobel Peace Prize.
Oh my gosh!
Specifically for peace.
Yeah.
For one more video I wanted to play. I thought it was kind of cool. Is again, we're talking about conspiracy and who knows what's what, and all of this could be true. But I found one clip based on people studying ancient mummies from Egypt, and they find like no prevalence of cancer. So one strain of thought is that cancer is a man-made disease. Conspiracy people go crazy right now if they hear that. But the other train of thought, which I think is more realistic, is it could be epigenetics that are now expressing themselves more frequently. That's why we're seeing more cases of cancer. But I thought it was interesting. Let's check it out. Some people think cancer is a man-made disease. You never know.
Scientists suggest that cancer is a man-made disease. The etiology of cancer has been a long-standing mystery for the medical community. Recent scientific studies, however, are beginning to suggest that the cause of this insidious disease may not be as enigmatic as originally thought. It appears that some forms of cancer may have originated from human activity. Rosalie David from the University of Manchester in England stated that in their investigation of hundreds of Egyptian mummies, scientists have only discovered a single case of cancer. This is surprising because cancer is a leading cause of death worldwide, responsible for about 1 in 8 deaths in 2004, as per the World Health Organization. According to Villanova University researcher Michael Zimmerman, the fact that cancer is rarely found in mummies indicates that it was not common in ancient times. He suggests that the causes of cancer are limited to societies that have been affected by modern industrialization. Zimmerman also notes that if cancer had existed in ancient societies, evidence of it would be present, especially considering the lack of surgical intervention at the time. Zimmerman made a diagnosis of rectal cancer in an Egyptian mummy from the Ptolemaic period, 600 to 1800 years ago, by examining its tissues under a microscope. The causes of cancer in this individual were likely linked to environmental factors rather than genetic factors, said Zimmerman. According to David and Zimmerman, the main contributors to cancer in modern times are environmental factors created by humans like pollution and diet. David stated that cancer is the second leading cause of death after cardiovascular disease in industrialized societies. Follow AID for more fascinating news and updates. Thanks.
So yeah, we've effectively made it worse. I mean, even the mummy didn't have a genetic precursor to cancer; it was environmental. So epigenetics of now more than ever are something to watch out for. It's not what you're born with. You're much more likely, and there are way more things that will give you cancer in your environment, your life, your stress level, all that. Way more epigenetic factors than actual genetic inherited factors. So
Yeah, I think it's epigenetic. I think I'm with you on that one, 100%.
yeah. It would make sense too. Like, I mean, people died again. Maybe you could also argue that with an extended lifespan, you now see the development of diseases that didn't have a chance to form when the lifespan was 20 years old. Go back 2, 3, 4,000 years, people weren't living to their 80s. So maybe it's a slow boil that, unless a child got it in a very rare case or somebody of a younger age, you never really saw Alzheimer's, cancer. Yeah, because people died when they were still juvenile, basically, right? So I think
And
that
what
could
if Egyptians just didn't have cancer? What if like other nations or other cultures did? What if the Romans had like a ton of cancer? Not that they did. I'm just saying, like, if they're only studying one
yeah,
population,
that's true.
it's not a good sample size. I don't think it's very good a
Yeah.
sample.
I think your audio may have disappeared.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Good.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it always happens right at the end. I don't know why. I'm all done movie clips. We got all of our good stuff out of the way, and then technical difficulties. Maybe we're being shadow banned by somebody
I think
listening.
So. I think the simulation is breaking right now. Actually, now that I think
it could be. Technical difficulties are part of podcasting, and it's all how you handle it and how you finish strong, right?
100%, man. 100%.
What is it? In order to compete, first you must finish. So finishing is as important as winning.
I make a joke all the time where I say like with my kids especially, where I'm like, if you want to go left, you got to go right. If you want to go up, you got to go down.
Yeah.
If you want to, or I can't think of another one for this one, but basically what you said.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
So
yeah, interesting. I mean, the last couple episodes we're focusing on things like the transhumanist movement, like basically cyborgs of the future. We're trying to, if we had to put on our thinking caps, what does the next 1,000 years look like for humanity? All of these topics become super important. Not only do we have issues we need to fix, but if there's going to be continued change in our environment, the health of our planet, the health of our food and everything else, we really need to fundamentally rethink everything. And I'm not saying we're going to become pouch lady with flamingo legs, but in 1,000 years, you never know. I mean, if that's a more efficient way to get around, if you're an Olympic sprinter and you can run 8 seconds flat with legs like that, you might volunteer and be like, I'm good. Like, hook me up with some flamingo legs, right?
So, I mean, hey, listen, if I could, run faster, jump higher, why not?
This is all generational, right? As when you're going from sort of the old school to the new school and it's all one generation, people go, this is crazy. But if you were born into a world where that's all you knew, you wouldn't think it's crazy at all.
Yeah.
That's totally normal.
Gradual change.
Yeah.
Like the frog in a hot tub, right? You slowly turn the hot tub in a boiling water, you slowly turn it up by degree by degree. It doesn't notice that it's being boiled. Not that this is a good analogy, but
Yeah. some of these things may take a while to adopt,
while,
and they may not necessarily be things we do want to adopt at all. Again, there are ethical concerns with a lot of this stuff. If we're making little brain modules, is that a life? Is it some type of life? Does it have rights? What are the ethics behind that? Can you create it and kill it? Is that fair? Like, it's a whole cascading spider web of potentiality. But essentially, things will start to change. You will start to see different things. We don't know if, these really are chemtrails or contrails. The conspiracy continues.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to chat and to have these conversations. And we love doing it. So we're going to keep putting on the thinking caps, bringing you guys cool topics that you may not have heard about or done deep dives on yourself. If you want to learn more about our show, check out our new website, quantumladderpodcast.com. Be sure to follow us on social media. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. It makes a big difference. And also, we have a link in the description for our Quantum Club. It is free to join. We've got another 30-plus episodes only available through our Quantum Club. We can be a little more candid and unfiltered on that platform as well, as it's not YouTube. And we don't have to get the shadow ban risk, which is very real nowadays. So give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed today's episode. And that's about all I got for today, Marquise. I'll give you the final thought, brother.
Yeah, I will say the last thing that I want to say is I hope that everyone takes from this that we are open to these conspiracy theories. I also hope that you guys all explore conspiracy theories, because a lot of times there's truth in conspiracy, and there are many conspiracies throughout history that turn out to be true. So don't dismiss them, don't dispel them, but be careful about how you approach these conspiracy theories, because you may get yourself into more of, I guess, the nostalgia of exploring them versus finding truth in them. And I encourage you all to look for the truth in all things. So that's all.
Well said. So with that, we'll bring today's episode to a close. On behalf of my co-host, Marquise Williams, and all the audio problems, which we got through in the end, and myself, Louis Borges, thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Love seeing you in the chat room and conversing with you all. Feel free to reach out to us if you do have topic suggestions, guest ideas, or overall comments. So with that, take care of each other, and we'll see everybody here again next week.